Well, welcome back to Automation Airwaves. I'm your host, Scott Teeple. And we're on episode 10 of Automation as an IT Investment, and back by popular demand. Kent Andrews, thanks for coming back. So as you know, we're walking through the global IA market report where we're talking through the 13 stall points. And today's episode, Automation as an IT Investment, we'll just dig right in. Kent, how do we define within Agilify what this stall point in automation as an IT investment is?
That centers around, automation starts with the business. It starts with a need for the functionality that automation brings. And a lot of times you'll see, kind of a shadow IT component maybe start within the functional unit or the business unit that says, hey, I just want to go ahead and move forward with this. And ultimately, that's not a long-term solution. Just like, the assets or the machines that you use on your desktop to run your applications that perform the functions within your function in your organization. Automation is the same way. So in order for us to receive the benefit long-term of automation as it scales, we've got to have IT involved up front to make sure the infrastructure behind that, all the components that they're responsible for are provided.
Yeah, so the really heavy investment where it's impacting a lot of individuals across the enterprise, more like the ERPs, the CRMs, those are obviously where IT owns and plays. What we're really talking about is in the small groups of individuals, right? The small touch points that maybe don't have the ROI for those big heavy weights, but really within where automation plays really nice, and it's really being driven by the business. Within the business process itself, and I know that you have an example of an Office experience. So would you mind kind of talking about it a little bit?
When I say Office, meaning Microsoft Office and some desktop authoring tools. Our founder Lee Coulter refers to automation as a box of possibilities, and it's kind of the same concept if you apply that story to like Microsoft Excel, or any of the Office products for desktop authoring. You need the functionality. You're not sure what you're going to do with it, but you need it. Automation's kind of the same way, but that still runs on the IT infrastructure. It still runs on the components that are supported by your IT department. There's still all types of security protocols and things that are in place, provisioning and all kinds of other items that are involved in your organization that IT needs to be involved on. So bringing that functionality of like desktop authoring into your business has to have a component of IT cooperation for that to be successful. So that even though it's a very simple analogy, there is quite a bit of a crossover between bringing automation in, which is a box of possibilities that we haven't actually done anything with yet, and as it compares to like Office, it's a blank canvas for us to use.
That's really great. Yeah. So let's get into the meat, and I say, hey, I'm starting my automation program, or I'm in the beginning stages, or maybe I've been doing it for a while. I think this one might be kind of easy, but how do I know that I'm in the stall point, or how do I know that this stall point's coming?
Yeah, it's it could be as simple as, hey, IT comes around and goes, well, what's that machine over there doing? How do you guys have that running over here? What's going on? So that's the kind of shadow IT component we're talking about. But as we look at these solutions, they're not just desktop solutions. They're enterprise scaling type or enterprise solutions that we're going to roll out amongst maybe just initially a single business unit, but across an organization at some point. And to do that successfully, there's all types of back-end access components, and how do we connect to the SQL databases that are behind it, and the target applications, and all of the inherent functionality that we're trying to create with automation. So that stall point really occurs when you hit that point where you've done some proof of concepts, you've kind of said, hey, this is cool, it does what I intended to do. Now, as I roll it out, you've got to get IT involved. They're going to go, wait a minute, I wasn't involved at the beginning, and I now want to go back and take a look, and you're going to pretty much scrap what you've done and have to start back over.
Yeah. So if the CIO doesn't know what you're doing, it's likely this one's coming your way really fast.
Yeah, it's much easier to have that conversation up front than to go, hey, by the way, I was supposed to get with you on this, but
but that situation happens, right?
And
I think our story really has begun, and we've also heard Lee, as you mentioned, having 20 or 30 desktops sitting in the corner that we were managing, right? And saying, how do we bring this thing? So it's not as if it's not something that you have to do. Because it may be the necessary evil to bring it into your organization. But the point is that if you find yourself in that situation, you better start getting your IT providers or organization really engaged in what you're doing.
Yeah, and you spoke earlier about that long tail of change. We've all seen that graph. You have your ERPs and your large, IT-led projects, and you've got these in the middle, these opportunities in the middle, which is the automatable components of your organization. They still sit on your IT infrastructure, and ultimately it's still owned by your IT component of your organization. So it's very important that you bring them in early. It's kind of like it's easier to get them involved earlier than to ask for forgiveness later.
Absolutely.
When it stalls out.
So can you share for everyone an example of a use case where we've helped maybe a client work through this stall point?
Yeah, one example that comes to mind, and there is a component of how you manage your digital workforce compared to your human workforce. But when you take processes within your organization and you convert them over to an automated process where a human did it previously, the ability to be able to see that data and to manage your digital workforce as the same way you would with your human workforce is one of those components that you have to be able to scale, to be able to understand what's happening within your function. And that's going to come from IT, and without that component, you're really left kind of out in the dark as to, did my process run, did my digital worker provide the functionality that I thought they would before my human workers came in that day, and really know how to set your alignment between the two. And so those underlying infrastructure components and the delivery of the reporting and the visibility to your digital workforce is going to come from IT ultimately. Without that, we get to a point where we're like, okay, now what do I do? I don't know if it ran last night. I'm now going to open up a service ticket and figure out what's going on. Who owns this actual solution called automation? And it's not the business in this case from an infrastructure standpoint. It is from a functionality standpoint, but not from an infrastructure standpoint. And so, there's your stall point. You're not going back and creating that dialogue that should have been there along the way.
Yeah. So if you find yourself as a business kind of wondering how you're going to engage with your IT organization, how are you going to speak the language of IT, having a strong partner who can speak on both sides with the business and the understanding and the business value of automation. At the same time, the technical aspect of what and how to bring automation, especially around this new term, I think that's really being spun around this digital workforce, right, and the understanding of maybe what that is. Would you mind just helping to define maybe to Agilify what a digital workforce is?
Well, digital workforce is as you would imagine, it's the bot farm, if you will, if you want to use that term, or it's the individual processes that you've put in place that provide the same functionality as your human workforce did in that particular role or that particular function within your organization. Going back to what you just said before, we have ran into clients that have not brought IT along for the ride, and some that have. And I'll tell you, when IT's in the room from the very beginning, sometimes they're the first ones for the light bulb. You can see the light bulb turn on. And they're like, oh, this is fantastic. And not only is this a great opportunity for this business function within my organization, but we may use it ourselves. And so getting them excited, and sometimes as excited as the business is to bring it in, really adds to the success of the program.
But understanding that the business is really going to continue to drive that, right? Because that's where the business process lies.
They're the customer. Yeah.
So awesome. So what bit of advice, as we kind of close up this session, what advice would you give our viewers out there on avoiding or navigating or just getting through this stall point?
Well, obviously the first piece of this is always to work with a partner that understands what the entire life cycle or all the components of a successful automation program look like. It's, once again, we've talked about this in many episodes. It's easy to go look at the solution. Hey, I need Excel. I'm going to go buy it off the shelf, install it. But as we're looking at rolling it out to multiple associates or to multiple business units, there's more involved in making that successful. So get IT involved up front. Make sure that they have complete buy-in. They own a lot of the components that will make you successful. And I always say it first is, I always say this all the time, there's a compliance, there's security, there's audit. There's these other pieces that IT already has their hands in, and they'll be providing you support along the way to get through those potential stall points. So bringing them in earlier is going to just ensure that success.
So making IT an advocate of the program,
locked and loaded,
so
together.
Important.
You got
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks for dropping in today. As we finish that up, please make sure that you go out to agilifyautomation.com and take the automation maturity assessment. It's really great understanding of maybe where you are in your overall program, and maybe get some tips to help you through. As always, unleashing your human potential. Thank you.